gaan soek nie, is dit korrek?
Dit was baie moeilik. Daar was verskillende stories, soos fast guns wat die vorige dag gesien was in die omgewing. Mense het vorentoe gekom en snaakse verklaringe gemaak en wat vir my baie gehelp het, is daar was 'n informasiekantoor opgestel te Seepunt, waar daar sekere span gewerk het op daardie inligting wat ingekom het. Ek was uitgekies om net te konsentreer op die oorlewende wat in die hospitaal was. Daarom, ek het nie baie koerant gelees nie, want ek het geweet dat sou vir my van die spoor af lei. En wat ek ook kan sê, die berigte wat in die koerant was, is eintlik 'n blessing in disguise geweest vir hierdie twee verdagtes, want hulle toe op hulle gemak gevoel. En het geweet nou die polisie soek na verkeerde mense en dit het hulle baie gerus gemaak.
En was dit min of meer jou job geweest om my kaf van die koring te skei?
Nie noodwendig nie, maar ek het die saak, die ondersoek gekoördineer. Daar is verskeie fasette, wat dit behels verskeie fasette. Ek moes sorg dat al die leidrade eerstens opgevolg word en dan ook die werk delegeer. Ek moet seker maak dat die ondersoekbeampte ondersteuning kry, ook leiding kry en dat die belangrike goed so gou as moontlik opgevolg word.
So jy sê dat die sny en die steekwonde wat met hierdie mes toegedien is, eintlik net marteling was?
Die oorlewende het in die hof ook vertel, dit was duidelik dat hulle doel was nie om die mense dood te steek met die mense nie, dit was meer 'n marteling. Hulle was aan die indruk, daar was 'n klomp geld in die huis en tot hulle skok moes hulle ontdek dat daar werklikheid nie so baie geld in die huis was. En die hele doel van hierdie marteling met die messe en die brandstof wat hulle oor hulle gegooi het, was hulle in die aard van saak het hulle vermoed die mense het die geld versteek en lieg vir hulle. En hulle doel was om die mense aan die oorledenes aan die praat te kry en te sê waar hulle die geld weggesteek het, wat later gebleik het hulle nie oor sulke inligting beskik het nie, want daar was nie geld in die huis nie.
It seems that everyone is still wondering what the motive for these gruesome murders could be. Do you think that they were homophobic murders?
Well, I think for me this thing 2 years later remains motiveless. There's no satisfying explanation that I've heard that for me can account for what happened. I know that the suspect said that it was robbery, but there was not a lot of money there, and I can't see how that could have been. And to keep somebody, or not just keep somebody, to keep 10 people tied up for hours and hours and play with them with a knife and threaten to do this and threaten to do that, to me just sounds like there's something else.
I think it was a robbery gone wrong up to an extent. But I also think that the crime was actually homophobic.
Why do you say it was homophobic?
I think it was homophobic because of the level of violence that they used, that they tortured these people for 3 hours, and also because of the place that they chose. They chose a place which they knew was going to be busy, and they also chose an obviously gay place.
The word phobia denotes an irrational fear. Someone is scared of a mouse. The mouse cannot harm you. Or someone is scared of the dark. It's irrational, the dark can't hurt you. But people who are homophobic, and homophobia is a reality, are very afraid and they tend to avoid the stimulus. Somebody who's scared of the dark will avoid the dark. Or someone who's scared of a mouse is not going to go after mice. Okay. I think what we're dealing with here is homoprejudice. Prejudice is not a fear, it's a very strong dislike, an irrational anger. The emotional response is invariably anger, and people who are homoprejudiced are more inclined to violence against gay or lesbian people.
I don't quite agree with the fact that a robbery gone wrong. I've always had a gut feeling that something didn't come out. That there's something there that should have come out that hasn't come out. It doesn't sit right with me at all.
Why did you say that?
2 guys walking into a studio with 9 people there don't control 9 boys to that extent. I knew a couple of the boys that worked there, and I just don't see them accepting what happened and just taking a back seat. They would have fought. So, 9 boys to overpower 2 is quite easy. Even with guns, it doesn't have a ring of truth to it.
But you know what, it's very different when you're in that situation. You get put in that situation and there's two guys holding handguns on you. It doesn't matter whether you're 30 people, somebody's going to die. And people did try and fight back and they got stabbed for it. They paid for it. Eric tried to fight back, he got stabbed, he paid for it. Berghuis fought back, he got shot in the stomach and in the head, he paid for it.
Die staatslykshuis lyk stil en verlate. Maar op die oggend van 20 Januarie was die staf tot in hulle diepste wese geskok toe die een verminkte lijk na die ander ingebring is.
Did they bring in 6 bodies at the same time?
Yes, we had first 6 and then 3 later on during the week as they died in the hospital.
Because they were in intensive care, were they?
Yes, there was three, and then of course the one the man that survived. But of the people that were taken to the hospital, 2 of the men died almost immediately, but there was a slight delay in getting to here. And then one of the men survived until the end of the week, and then he was brought here.
There were some newspaper reports that said that they were actually drowning in their own blood. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. I mean, because of the gunshot wounds to the head, a lot of them had fractured the base of the skull. And what happens then is, and with the force of the gunshot wound, there is then a way that the blood can come into the back of your throat. It can seep down in. And so, yes, and because you now have a head injury, you're not in good control of your airways, so you can't cough it out or you can't swallow it, or you're trying to, and so you do get that noise and that effect that it's, but I mean, none of that was from a cut throat. Yes. Because none of the wounds on the throat or the neck went into
deep enough.
Yeah, into the back of the throat.
Can you describe how they looked when they were brought in that morning?
Well, they looked pretty awful. They had on their clothes, mainly jeans. They were mainly all barefooted, but all of them had this tape around their faces and around their mouths, and you could see, because we obviously didn't remove the tape. At first we got fingerprints first before we removed anything, but you could see that in their mouths was something as well, so that there was a gag in the mouth and then this tape around the heads, keeping it in. And of course there was blood. They'd all been shot in the head, some more than once, so there was a lot of blood around the face and the head. And then there were wounds to the neck, invariably in all of the cases. And so there was blood from that, and you could see the cut marks on the neck.
Die toneel was toe klaar, die middag, sê 4 uur toe is ons klaar met die toneel, foto's gevat, beslag gelê op doppies en sovoorts. En daarna het ek die beseerde oorgeplaas na Grote Skuur Hospitaal. Ons het eers polisiebewaking gereël vir hom. Ek is elke aand toe na die hospitaal om sy toestand te monitor en met hom te gesels. En het het vir my so plus minus 2-3 weke gevat om 'n volledige verklaring uit hom te kry. En die dag toe hy ontslaan word uit die hospitaal, is ek na hom en ek het hom geneem na Seepunt Polisie Stasie.
And of course you also identified Trevor Taste from a photograph.
See, this is the irony behind everything, is that he was arrested 7 years prior to this for stealing his brother's car, and his brother reported it, and it's only because of that yeah. But it was my dad that actually said, listen, have you taken him to go see photograph albums, because they hadn't taken me until then, and it was my dad suggesting it that made them take me to Seepunt Polisie Station and ID him.
Hierdie foto het ek gevat en geneem na die plaaslike kriminele rekordsentrum waar ek al die inligting rondom Trevor thuis gekry het. Ook dat hy die lisensiehouer van 'n 7,65 pistool was, en dit het 'n bietjie vir hom nader getrek, want op die toneel het ons 7,65 patroondoppies, afgevuurde patroondoppies gekry. Ek het alle adresse gekry op Trevor thuis, en 2 dae daarna is ek en nog 'n span speerders na die woning van die suster en geklop, en daar het Trevor thuis self die deur oopgemaak. Ek is toe na ons ondervragingskantoor waar ek en hy gesit en gesels het so vir 'n half